As a DV survivor, I saw It Ends With Us, and I have a huge problem with the entire narrative. I had somewhat of a similar situation to Lily in It Ends With Us, and I fell in love with my best friend's brother, and it went very differently for me. In the very first scene, when she first meets him, the literal first impression that she has of him, just a spoiler by the way, this has spoilers, he literally kicks a chair in front of her out of deep frustration, like a violent action. And then they go on to flirt as if nothing happened. Beside the fact that they have no chemistry and it's hard to even become immersed in the experience because like the dialogue is so weird, he is also vaguely threatening to her in certain ways. And I guess that might be true for some people's experiences, but from what I've seen, a lot of people who have experienced DV, the perpetrator often comes off as an incredibly nice person when you meet them. In fact, you would think that they would never hurt or touch a fly. Abusers are very good at protecting their reputation, and they're often seen as really good members of society. A lot of times they will abuse behind closed doors and people won't even know about it. They very commonly either make you believe that it's your fault, they make you engaged in something called reactive abuse, where they abuse you and abuse you and abuse you until you blow up at them, and then they say you're the abuser. That commonly happens. Or they just kind of make you believe that it was an accident, that they were joking, things like that, that get you to be open to abuse. It's not as simple as just there were red flags and they were easy to see. For example, my perpetrator never touched my face, but he certainly touched other areas of my body that he knew would be covered by clothes. He also did not do those things in front of other people. He always waited until we were alone or in the car or around other people that we would never see again. Another thing that the movie fails to portray is that abuse usually does not start physically. It starts through mental abuse. It starts through control and manipulation. A big one for them is pushing boundaries. They will push your boundaries to see how far they can do it. One thing I do appreciate about the film is it shows how subtly you can become brainwashed into being abused. You know, at first it was a pure accident. And then after that, it was just like, it was so difficult for her to actually understand that she was actually being abused. And that is often how it is. So they did get that one thing right. Even though the portrayal of the abuse wasn't very accurate in my opinion. Like, no, it's not how it often goes down. However, at one point in the movie when she's like, "Mom, how come you didn't just leave?" she just vaguely says, "It would have been more difficult." And I really wish they would just show the reality of what it is like to deal with someone who controls your finances, controls you physically, makes you look like the enemy and the bad guy because they abuse you in secret, but then, try to make you have reactive abuse so you look like the crazy one. And a thing that was very different from my experience is that, especially since it was the same situation where it was my best friend's brother, my best friend literally was part of the brainwashing and condoning of my abuse, which is one of the reasons why I'm no longer in contact with her now. It took me a really long time to realize that, but I finally come to the realization that she was a huge part of the reason why I accepted it in the first place, because she subtly normalized the abuse. Basically, when I did bring it up, didn't really say much or even sometimes acted like it was my fault, and then also refused to get involved. So in other words, when you're dealing with an abuser, I would not count on their family to take your side, because most of the time they're going to make you look like the problem, and they're going to have their family back them, and their family is also going to participate in your character assassination. In fact, they might even get your family to turn against you, because abusers, especially if they're narcissists, are that good at your character assassination. And like I said earlier, the mom just saying it would have been more difficult and I loved him. I do understand the connection that you have, the trauma bonds you can have with a perpetrator. However, if I was taken care of and I had the financial ability, I would have left a long time ago. What people fail to realize is how devastating financial abuse and financial control can be. Perpetrators will get their victims dependent on them. So it is very difficult for them to leave, not just on an emotional level, which they also do that manipulation as well to bond you to them. They also do it on a financial and physical level. It is sometimes, in some situations, nearly impossible to leave. And then at the very end, we actually see her trying to mend things for the sake of their child and saying to her child, it ends with us. And that's where the whole, like, it ends with us comes from, is that she's deciding that she's going to step away and that it ends with us, while also simultaneously naming her child after his dead brother, which don't even get me started on that. As if, and here's a spoiler, you know, he accidentally pew-pewed his brother when he was a child. As if that creates an abuser, because in my experience and opinion, it doesn't. These people don't understand how abusers are made because something like that, in my opinion, does not create an abuser. It is narcissistic family systems, or if they are victimized themselves. I've actually seen a statistic before, I can't remember where I found it, but it said that if boys witness their mother being abused by a man, whether it be their father or a boyfriend or whatever, that they are more likely to abuse their own partners in the future. And then at the very end, she tries to make amends with him and basically allows him to be around her vulnerable pregnant self, touching her belly and all that. And then also letting him be there at the birth and a part of the child's life, while saying to the child, it ends with us. How is it going to end with us when you are literally parentifying your child out of the womb by naming her after the person that he actually, you know, which is basically setting her up for a role in his life where she is having to make up for the relationship that he lost, which is a codependent dynamic. You don't think that, you know, and this is another thing with the writer, you don't think that if a man can hurt his wife, that he doesn't have the propensity or the capability to hurt his daughter as well? This writer does not understand domestic abuse. So not only was Lily easily able to leave, get even his family on her side, be financially okay without him, he didn't, you know, he didn't control her in those ways either, which is often how it starts even before it gets physical. And she allows him in her life, and there's even somewhat of like a redemption arc with him, and it's just, it is so wrong, and it is incredibly damaging narrative and story for people. It does not help people understand DV at all, and it honestly just continues to put the blame and the responsibility on the victim instead of on the abuser, where it should be.